The funeral of freedom of information activist Aaron Swartz has been held in Chicago. The 26-year-old took his own life last Friday after finding himself boxed in by federal prosecutors and facing decades in jail. All this for illegally downloading academic documents. Well, with us to talk more about this is Justin Morton. He's a software engineer who used to work with JSTOR. Now, that's an academic database that was also hacked by Swartz. Now, he stole millions of documents from your organisation, JSTOR, which he used to work for. Why do you think they dropped the charges against him when he had actually committed a crime?
That's a good question. I was a software engineer for JSTOR. Let me say I certainly don't represent them. My views and opinions are my own. Of course, they had the right to pursue charges in this case. JSTOR is a very unique organization. Everyone who works there is an academic in some way, very grounded, intelligent people. I've worked for several Fortune 100 companies, and JSTOR it's filled with very intelligent people, and they're there for a good cause. No one wants to be hacked. It did cause problems, within the network, but when everything is said and done, nothing that Aaron downloaded was ever distributed. They did not pursue any charges against Aaron. I think that should have told the prosecuting attorney something.
And well, it didn't tell them much, because obviously they pursued him with possibly a very, very stiff sentence, facing a crime that perhaps, would you say, did actually match the punishment? Was it fair what he was facing, do you think?
Absolutely not. I mean, you're looking at a crime, you're looking at a crime that essentially amounts to downloading PDFs to a hard drive. No person was harmed. There was no financial benefit. Murderers received less punishment. I mean, I can't even imagine how scary and terrible that must be to have your government hell-bent on putting you in a cage for 30 years for downloading some PDFs. If you're a depressed person, that amounts to a death sentence. The prosecutors need to work more closely, I believe, with the organization involved. JSTOR didn't pursue charges, and that should have played a huge factor in this.
Right, let's just quickly talk about another case. A few years ago, another accused hacker, Jonathan James, he also killed himself after being pursued by the same prosecutors. Do you think these deaths could perhaps change the way these sort of cases are handled in the future?
Every situation is different. People talk about hackers, and I personally believe that the word hacker is a stereotype. There are hackers who do good. There are hackers who do bad. It's too bad that there aren't more Aaron Swartzes out there. There's an inherent risk in activism. Depending on what you're doing, you should be aware of the consequences and be prepared to face those.
But Justin, look, you were talking about earlier about a huge amount of talented people working for these organisations, obviously posting very important academic material, which they work very hard for. Most people would pay to get that information. Surely copyright is a way that millions of professionals, authors, artists, scientists, people like yourself, you make a living. So you have to be defended, don't you? There's no justification for actually stealing material that people have actually made and deserve to be paid for it.
There's no justification for that. I mean, JSTOR has invested a tremendous amount of money to build its archive and make it available to institutions around the world. It employs engineers, project managers, scholars, math scientists. Those things aren't cheap. How much would it cost you to collect, say, 1,200 different journals going back centuries, millions and millions of pages? Knowledge wants to be free. I think that was Aaron's cause. JSTOR is a nonprofit organization. If the financial model becomes broken, then the service cannot be supported, and a fantastic corpus of academic journals suddenly disappears. So there needs to be a financial model, and JSTOR has found one. And I think it was a very fair financial model. I was a software engineer, so I'm not, I can't speak to the financials, but I would certainly dissuade, people from believing that hacking into a website is going to make a case.
Okay, Justin, great to hear your thoughts on this. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Justin Morton,
Thank you.
former employer of JSTOR, joining me live there from the States.